How's it going? I'm Matthew Adolph, and today I'm with my mom in her garden. She's going to take us through and show us some of her plants. So Mom, are you ready to do this?
I sure am.
All right,
Thank
let's
you.
get into it.
Hi, I'm Barb Adolph, and welcome to my garden. I have had a labor of love for the past 9 years where I have tried to introduce primarily native plants into my yard to help the wildlife thrive. I don't use any pesticides or other chemicals, and I've had tremendous success with what I've done, and I hope to inspire others to do what I have attempted to do. Okay, this is the corner of my yard closest to my driveway. I have a small city lot, but I've been able to make good use of it. I researched native plants that are easy to grow, that have a good flowering period, which I enjoy, as well as the bees and the birds. And I actually have the National Wildlife Foundation's designation as my yard is a certified wildlife habitat, which basically means I have supplied the essential ingredients in my yard to help support particularly the birds and bees that live in my area through shelter, food, water, and cover. The first section here, these are called yellow coneflowers, also called Rudbeckia, and their common name is black-eyed Susans, and they are a native plant. They're very easy to grow. They have a lengthy blooming period. They usually start blooming by the end of June, and they last until frost, so they have a nice lengthy blooming period. All day long you can watch various bees and butterflies even that come to my yard. I have multiple roses of Sharon in my yard, which is basically bush size. It can become about 15 feet ultimately at its greatest height, but that is also a native plant that grows around here. I have different colored varieties. This one happens to be pale pink. The other ones that I have are more rose colored or even scarlet red. The green plants here are called Autumn Joy sedums, and they are a succulent plant which are also very important for the pollinators. Right now they look sort of like small broccoli heads, but as the year progresses and we get towards fall, the end of August, early September, the plants actually turn a very crimson red, which is a beautiful color to see. The plant to my right is a lupine or lupin, and right now, this is the beginning of August. The plant looks very straggly, but it was gorgeously beautiful in the spring of this year. The leaves were very green and full, and the seed, what are currently now seed heads, were beautiful purple flowers. As the season goes on, it does fade. The plant is also native, and it obviously is very good for the bird population. The purple coneflower is also called Echinacea, as well as the Rudbeckia, which are also called black-eyed Susans, are both really hardy plants. They are drought resistant, so you don't have to spend a lot of money watering them frequently. They basically take care of themselves. Because they're drought resistant and their roots go deep into the soil, they also are really good for erosion control. They're very good for purification of water. As it rains and the water goes through the soil, their roots help to purify the water that goes into the ground. The plants are both native to this area, which for me is the state of Ohio. They are very long blooming. They initially, with both of these plants that I planted, I had planted them by seed. So you have to be a patient gardener. It takes 2 years typically for them to bloom once you've planted them by seed. However, you can buy seed very inexpensively. There are lots of sources out there. A company I've used a lot is Wild Seed Farms.
While my mother is busy working on her flowers, my father manages a separate vegetable garden.
My name's Gilbert Adolph.
And what's your relationship to me?
I'm your father.
All right, perfect.
Some of my favorite vegetables include what's called a hillbilly tomato. Hillbillies are a yellow with red streaked tomato that gets quite large, about 3 or 4 inches across, and they're very sweet and delicious tomato. They're a late ripening tomato, so they probably won't be in until later in August, but they can continue on through September and even into early October depending upon the weather, and they make very good eating. They're generally figured on 80 to 90 days, so they're a 3-month maturing tomato plant. The plants grow quite large and you get a good yield from them. I first learned about them when we lived in the city of Akron in the Firestone Park, South Akron area, from a neighbor. They are what is called a heritage tomato, which means you can reuse the seeds and grow them. They're not a hybrid. Hybrid tomatoes, you cannot reuse the seeds. I've been gardening most of my life. I grew up in a small town, which at the time was more of a farm town, and my dad, my uncles, and pretty much everybody I knew put out large gardens every year. And so I got introduced to it early and learned to like the produce. I worked on a truck farm after I was in the summer of my 8th grade year. So I'm pretty much a gardener from the beginning, I guess you could say. I just love it. Mostly my own father taught me about gardening, although when you're around uncles and aunts that put out gardens, and it's just a part of life as you grow up, you pick up all sorts of things about the various plants, how to grow them, how to grow fruit trees and so on, just because it's part of your life. It was a very different time than now. We didn't have a lot of electronics, and we learned to enjoy the outdoors and spend time doing such things much more than people do these days. But I encourage anyone to try gardening. It's very rewarding, and it will calm you down from the fast pace of our modern life. My dad had grown up on a farm, but by trade he was a tire builder in Akron, and I suppose growing up on the farm enabled him to have the knowledge and the desire to just spend the time putting in and growing a large garden. My mom would also can and freeze some of the produce, which helps out quite a bit.
Hi, we're here in my backyard right now, and I wanted to show you a few of my favorite plants. This one here is called a cleome or cleome, and it has numerous benefits to wildlife. First of all, it's very good for bees, it's very good for butterflies, and especially hummingbirds. This plant here is a bee balm, also called Monarda. I just planted it new this spring. It was a very tiny sprout. It's grown to be about 18 inches high at this point. It just finished flowering. The bloom is a beautiful bright red flower. It kind of has a tubular flower. Initially this was one shoot, and just in the course of about a month's time, it has produced probably about 6 to 8 other shoots down here. Gradually this will spread. My intention is that it will take over an area of about 4 feet in length and about 3 feet in width. This is one of my favorite plants. It's Joe Pye weed. It was named after a Native American man who was an herbal healer, and his name was Joe Pye. This plant is a very young plant. It will eventually get to be about 6 feet high and 3 feet around. This plant is a host for 7 different types of butterflies, nectar plant for 7 different types of butterflies, particularly the monarch. I wanted to make mention of another plant that I have. This is also a very young plant. It will ultimately become at least 5 feet high. It's called an ironweed, and its particular value is being a nectar source for the monarch butterfly. Below me I have a species of milkweed. It's called butterfly weed. It is a plant that will ultimately grow to be only 18 inches high. It's very drought resistant, and it is the only host plant in the U.S. for the monarch butterfly, so it has great value in terms of supporting our monarch population.
All right, that's all the time we have today and all the plants we're going to cover. So Mom, do you have any last words for anyone that may be interested in doing their own gardening?
Yes, I just wanted to say, though my garden may seem complex to the amateur gardener, all of my plants were chosen because they are very easy care. They have beautiful blooms, and they have value to our native wildlife population. I want to thank you for coming, and I encourage anyone to give any of my species a try. You'll be glad you did.